Hey folks, this is Mark Maron and you're listening to Tom Clark's Main Event. All right, do it.
This is Daddy Show. Step off.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to the program. Thank you for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Clark, and you are listening to Tom Clark's Main Event. This is episode 5 of the podcast, and as customary as I've done every episode since number 1, I will extend to you a laurel and a hearty handshake. Thank you for your support. For all you folks out there that have downloaded, subscribed, checked me out from day one. Your support has been greatly appreciated. It's been a fun ride. We're having a lot of fun here on the show, and hopefully you are as well. I'm not going to waste a lot of time today. I'm going to get right to the subject at hand because of all the topics in professional wrestling. This is one that strikes a chord with me because I've been a fan of this particular aspect of the business for so many years now. Today's main event topic is tag teams in pro wrestling. So, you're a pro wrestling fan. You're into tag team wrestling. Why exactly? What is it about tag teams? Because if you believe anything that the current top company in the world will tell you, or at least have you to believe, tag team wrestling is just really not maybe all that big of a deal like it used to be. You don't really need to care about all that much. To that, I say horse pucky. That's right, folks. I'm getting foul with this thing today, so I'll try to censor myself. My apologies for those innocent ears out there. Tag team wrestling is a big deal. Has been to me for a very long time. I'm an older fan. I grew up during the 80s, during Jim Crockett Promotions. The number one pro wrestling company in the history of the business, in my opinion. The best era of pro wrestling for me was tag team wrestling in the territory days. To me, the best era by far. And I've said this before on the broadcast, but people talk about the Attitude Era with a great fondness, a great love, and great memories. And no doubt there were some great times during that era, but for me, the territory days were the best of all time. And it's no coincidence that during the territory days, tag team wrestling was at its peak. It was at its absolute peak. We're talking about some of the greatest teams that the business has ever seen, teams that will be remembered from this point on. They will never be forgotten. They are, as you could say, history-making tag teams. They truly are. The territory days were the apex of tag team wrestling, if I can even go that far. Why is that? Because for the most part, pro wrestling fans during those days, we're talking about the 70s and 80s, okay, came to see tag teams. They didn't come and just were handed some tag team matches on the card because they just happened to be there. No, they actually came to see the tag teams themselves. How many people today, on an honest poll of fans from around the world, would be straight and say, I came to see the Usos. That's the only reason I'm here. You see what I'm saying? Okay, maybe that's a little harsh. Maybe it's not that they're the only team that you like, but they're the primary reason that you came. And you know what? For those of you out there who do subscribe to that notion, hey, good on you. Okay? I think that's awesome. Because back in the day, for me, again, growing up in the South, Jim Crockett Promotions was number one. And guess what? This is still Crockett country, folks. Make no mistake about it. For me, the best tag teams in the history of the business were down south. And I'll always believe that. Yes, we're talking about, Mid-South also. Talking about Kansas City. You're talking about AWA, Minnesota. A lot of great territories. Texas, of course. But for me, the number one territory, Jim Crockett Promotions. Some of the best tag teams that I personally have witnessed to this day. Some of the best tag team wrestling I've ever seen was during the territory days of the business. So let's get right down to this, folks. What teams are we talking about? We keep saying the word tag teams. Who are we talking about specifically? Let's get right down to it. We're talking about the Masked Assassins. We're talking about the Funks. Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk. We're talking about Jack and Jerry Briscoe. Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. There's a tag team for you. For any of you folks out there right now who are under the age of 30, maybe a little bit older, if you don't know any of these tag teams, please, please go to YouTube, go to WWE Network, look this stuff up. Don't do it right now. You're listening to me, crying out loud. This is the most important part of your day. Don't even lie. But when you get the opportunity, I highly encourage you to go check out the old school, because some of the best matches you will ever see. I can't sell that. I can't oversell it. There's no way. I can't sell enough to you. Tag team wrestling, big business back in the day. Big business. And that was just a handful. We hadn't even got started, man. All right, we can't forget Sergeant Slaughter and Don Cornoodle. Goofy name, right? Don Cornoodle, great worker. He was. Very solid hand in the ring. He and Sergeant Slaughter, very good tag team down south. Again, you don't know, now you know. Go check it out. Here's a name you should know if you're a true pro wrestling fan. The Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Huh? Talking about Ole Anderson and Gene Anderson. And of course later, Ole and Arn Anderson. By the way, is that the coolest tag team name ever invented? I submit that maybe it is my favorite tag team name of all time, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Because if you didn't know anything about that, and all you knew was their name, then you knew that those two guys were going to be up to some heavy damage. I remember Gordon Soley calling the Road Warriors Carnage Unlimited. And I always thought, I can't believe no one's ever took that as a tag team name. You want to know why they haven't? Because no one could top the Road Warriors. So you know what? Let's get right into it. The Road Warriors. Hawk and Animal. How you sit on that? Seriously, what are you thinking about it? You've heard the buzz. Let's say you've never seen Hawk and Animal work a match. Because again, let's say you just haven't Googled, you haven't YouTubed, you haven't looked at WWE Network, you haven't bought a DVD. Are you kidding? Why are you listening to this program? I'll tell you why. Because you're trying to get educated. I can appreciate that. School's in session, baby. School's in session. I'm the teacher. You're on the bus. This is class. Did you bring me an apple? I got some terrible cliches. My kid just started school, so there you go. Anyway, the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, Carnage Unlimited. How do you stand on them? What are your thoughts on them? Let's say you're a fan, you've never even seen the guys work. Not maybe a couple matches, okay? All right? You're familiar. You've kind of heard about them from your dad, your mom, whoever it is, folks around you. You hear WWE talk about them, but you don't really, I don't really know who they are. Let me just tell you right now, if the only incarnation of the LOD that you know is the LOD from WWE, please stop what you're doing and go check out the National Wrestling Alliance of the Road Warriors. Okay? There's no comparison. And much respect to what WWE attempted to do with the Legion of Doom. I get it. Hawk became very entertaining very later on. I mean, he was always entertaining, but the focus was on Hawk, on his mic work, and later on some very unfortunate things with him from a personal standpoint, which kind of ruined the team for me, if I'm being honest. And then later on they broke them up and they tried to Heidenreich, oh God, I'm not even going to cover that. Do it yourself. You get nothing from me. School's out on that deal. But if all the only Hawk and Animal you know are from the WWE, from that incarnation, please, man, please take a minute and go check it out. Some of the biggest crowd reactions, the biggest pops, and the infamous Road Warrior pop. You'll see it and hear it on those tapes of the old Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, Georgia Championship Wrestling. You'll see it. It's amazing stuff. They were so good at what they did. Okay, are they the best of all time? We're gonna get back to that. We just started. Keep on going here. Who else are we talking about? How about the Russians? Ivan and Nikita Koloff, and later Crusher Khrushchev. Okay, the Fantastics. Remember the Fantastics? Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton. Two pretty boys, right? Go look them up. Look them up. Trust me, you'll see. Two pretty boys. Here's the funny part. Got the bow ties. Got the jackets, right? Shiny, pretty, got mullets, right? Here's the thing. They were over to the moon, Jack. They were over. You have no idea. If you don't know nothing about the Fantastics, they were over. Babyface guys. In every sense of the word, they were babyface, of course, but true babyface. And fans just supported them because the good-looking guys, young, energetic, athletic, got it done in the ring. A very easy tag team to identify with because they're just a couple of nice guys just working hard, trying to get to where they wanted to be. Great little tag team. They were. Can't say enough good things about them. We're not done yet. Oh my God, we're not even done yet. We're just down south right now. Think about that, folks. Who else are we talking about? The Powers of Pain, the Warlord and Barbarian. By the way, Barbarian, great guy. Got the chance to meet and hang out with Barbarian in later years. One of the nicest guys you will ever meet. He was, even though he was an old timer, what we sort of refer to as an old timer, a veteran of the business, he never had that attitude. You know what I mean? He never had that attitude of a guy that, oh, well, our era was the best. These kids today, what do they know? He was never like that. He was always very accepting of the modern era, always very supportive, had conversations with Barb. Funny guy, by the way, got a great sense of humor. So if you're ever going to a local show and Barb's on the card, get your tickets. The guy's fun. He really is. And go shake his hand. Don't be intimidated by him. He's a very awesome guy. But, managed by Powers of Pain. Managed by who else? Number one, Paul Jones. Right? It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Paul Jones. Legendary Paul Jones. Okay? Again, folks, I'm your teacher. If you don't know Paul Jones, for God's sake, Google. Google, baby. You'll get educated. Trust me. Paul Jones, great manager. He was. Great tag team. Who else are we talking about here? In later years, down south here, Barry Windham and Lex Luger. Great tag team. Now, they didn't start off as a tag team. They became a tag team because they were two of the top baby faces in the company. And when you have two great baby faces, why not put them together? As you will see evident later on in this discussion today from the world of Vince McMahon. Who else are we talking about here, folks? How about the Sheepherders? Do you know the Sheepherders? You ever heard of the Sheepherders? You might know them in their later version as the Bushwhackers. How about that? You've heard of the Bushwhackers, looking butch, right? The Sheepherders, however, down south, the Sheepherders were a very vicious, violent tag team. They were. A lot of blood involved. They were bad dudes. They dressed almost identical to what you saw as a Bushwhacker, so they weren't goofy, stupid. See, the very interesting transformation came back in the day when you went from the territories to working for Vince McMahon. You might have been ruthless, cutthroat, vicious. Guess what? You get to WWE, poof. Vince waves his magic wand. And suddenly, man, life's different, brother. It's like you step into the transformation chamber and poof, you're Superman, right? You're in the fortress. You step in there because you got to go marry Lois Lane. You lose all your powers. You become somebody else for her. You see what I'm saying? It's sort of the same thing. You got to become somebody else for Vince. Got to make Vince happy. Now, if there's anyone that currently works for WWE, I'm just playing. Oh, it's good stuff. No, listen. Vince has to make. Let's be fair, okay? Vince has to make money off your name, your likeness. Got to sell merch, okay? Obviously, he didn't want guys who ran a specific gimmick in the territories to bring that gimmick to the company. And if they did, he wanted to switch the names up a little bit, maybe modernize it, tweak it, what have you, to make it more of a WWE product. Everyone understands that. You don't need this guy explaining that to you, okay? That much is pretty well out there and pretty much for certain. You understand how the game's played, right? Can't really blame Vince for that. Any promoter that's got half a brain in his head would understand. I have to take these guys that fans may know, but I have to make them my own. So I understand. Trust me, I do. Okay, I know how the game's played. But there's been examples other than that, okay? Not just the Sheepherders, but how about Adrian Adonis? Think about that. Adrian Adonis, back in the day, was a tough dude. The black hair, wore the black leather, sort of a leather motorcycle gimmick, was a bad guy, right? He gets to WWE, dyes his hair, put him in pink, got the boa and all the hats and the flower shop. Oh, vey. Whew. Yikes. Yeah. That's the same guy. Yeah. So, a different topic for another day. Could be episode number 6 or 7. Stay tuned and find out. So, staying with tag teams, what else are we talking about here, folks? How about, again, staying down south? Let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's get to the nitty gritty because you know you want to. Who were the top teams? All right. Besides the Road Warriors, okay, who else did you have? I'm talking top tier now, folks. This is it, the moneymakers, okay? You had Hawk and Animal. Who else you have? Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson from the Four Horsemen. That's some good stuff, right? And for a lot of fans out there, Tully and Arn are the best tag team of all time. There's not even in a debate anymore. Okay, they're it, man. They're it. There's no one else. Even above the Road Warriors, no joke. A lot of people will place Tully and Arn above the Road Warriors. Now, you want to talk about work ethic, getting it done in the ring, impressing everyone in the crowd, whether they were hated or not. You better believe it. You had better believe it. Okay? I mean, it's a true story. Great stuff. Again, Tully and Arn, one of the best tag teams of all time. I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. But who else did you have on the top tier down south, NWA? I got two teams to throw at you. Actually, let me get this out of the way. We talking about two top baby faces putting them together. How about the Superpowers? The Superpowers, Dusty Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, Shidota. Right? It's great stuff, man. One of the biggest pops I've ever heard as a pro wrestling fan. And guess what? I'm an older guy, okay? I say, you're going to think I'm in my 60s. I look great for a dude in his 60s. Am I wrong? Huh? Don't say anything to that. Here's the thing. You want to hear a pop? It's one of the, after all these years, it's still in the top 5 loudest pops, not just for crowd noise, but for excitement, adrenaline. I can't watch it to this day without getting the most massive goosebumps you've ever seen in your entire life. No joke, man. It's big time stuff the night that Nikita Koloff turned face and joined Dusty Rhodes in the cage against Ole and J.J. Dillon. Epic stuff, okay? You haven't seen that? Are you kidding? Are you high? Go see it, for crying out loud, folks. Please, don't waste your time anymore. Your life will change when you see that clip. Don't call yourself pro wrestling fans without seeing Nikita Koloff turn babyface. True story. You got to see it, man. It was amazing stuff. Again, two top babyfaces had nothing to do with each other until Matt and TA's accident. And you know what? There's going to be plenty of episodes here about the NWA. So stay tuned for that. Please keep tuning in. We're going to move on here. I got two tag teams for you. That's what I was going to say before. I had two tag teams for you. Of all the guys that came and went for Jim Crockett, for Georgia Championship Wrestling, and yes, I know I've missed a lot of teams in this discussion, but I want to give you who I felt were the highlights for me as a fan and as a writer, okay? But I got two tag teams for you that stole the show every single time they set foot in the ring. Are you ready? The Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. One of the best rivalries in the history of professional wrestling. There's no overselling that. Okay? No way, man. Is that no way? You don't have to have been alive in the 1980s to understand what I'm talking about. Can I just tell you that right now? Again, you got the Google machine. Go make it happen. Trust me. Why was what... You're asking, Tom, what's up, dude? Why was this such a big deal? Because Midnight Express versus Rock and Roll Express, one of the best feuds of all time in the history of this business, folks. That's a huge statement, but it's the truth. And by far, and you can make the argument that it's by far the best tag team rivalry that pro wrestling fans have ever seen in any company on any level. I'm not even joking about that. Seriously. Because they were two teams who were very close, but they were completely different at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like if the Rock and Roll Express had taken, one step to the left, they could have become Midnight Express. If the Midnight Express had taken one step to the right, they could have been the Rock and Roll Express. It's true. Now, to imagine them switching places may be difficult, but both teams were so talented that they could have pulled off anything they wanted to. The Rock and Roll Express were two of the biggest baby faces the NWA has ever seen, bar none. Talk about the Road Warrior pop. Go back and listen to the Rock and Roll Express pop. You talk about being over in a territory. They had the NWA. I'm telling you right now. Jim Crockett, every time he heard, Electric Light Orchestra's music come on for Rock and Roll is King, for the Rock and Roll Express, and saw the crowd pop, that's dollar signs, man. Cash registers popping like crazy. True story. It's Money in the Bank every time they're on the card because they just absolutely destroyed. They lit it up every time they were booked. Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. By the way, two great guys. Got the chance to work with Ricky in a promotion several years ago, talking about around 2000, 2001. he and Robert both. And I had goosebumps. We got them booked for a show, and they came out, and we had the music queued up, and it was. I was 10 years old again. I was 10 years old again. It was the most amazing night that I had spent in the business. Just sitting there. I was just doing commentary that night, but I watched them, and from a distance, I was marking out. I'm going to admit to you. I had goosebumps. The crowd went nuts. Seriously. They still have it. Right now, as we speak, they're working somewhere. They are. Okay? Wrestling's in their blood. Rock and Roll Express never going to die. You know what I'm saying? They just get better, man. It's true. The love for the business, their heart for that stuff never goes away. Not for a guy that's committed. When you're a lifer, that stuff never goes away. Rock and Roll Express were amazing to watch. It was an honor to share the same ring with Ricky Morton, even if it was just some small capacity. The guy was amazing. The two of them together. I can't say this enough. You want the epitome of tag team wrestling. That's what this whole show is about, folks. Tag team wrestling. The epitome of tag team wrestling in one company was the Rock and Roll Express. I love Hawk. I love Animal. We're going to talk about those guys a lot. Trust me, it's coming. But the Rock and Roll Express, in terms of longevity, in terms of staying where they were, in terms of their pop, in terms of everything, Rock and Roll Express never had to turn heel. I mean, they turned heel later as they left the company. Okay? WWE did this whole thing where they brought in NWA guys. I didn't really care about any of that stuff, I'm being honest with you. It was a pale comparison. Just a weak attempt at bringing them in. And I'm sure maybe there was some good intentions there, but for me as a longtime NWA fan, I wasn't with it at all. Okay? But again, in terms of longevity, in terms of pop, in terms of work ethic in the ring, getting it done, Ric Flair had stated on several occasions that Ricky Morton was one of the best guys he had ever worked and should have been the Shawn Michaels of the NWA. It's just that Ricky would never split up from Robert. Okay? Ricky Morton could have been an NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He could have been the Shawn Michaels. Okay? So, let's use that segue. Let's jump to another company back during the day. What about the Midnight Rockers? Who, you're asking? Midnight Rockers, baby. Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. You may know them as the Rockers, but in the AWA and Vern Gagne's American Wrestling Association, it was the Midnight Rockers. Came out to Judas Priest. Good stuff. Were they a rip-off of the Rock and Roll Express? Well, maybe they'd say they're not. They were young, good-looking guys. Their gear was very similar to Ricky and Robert's. At the time, I was one of those fans that said, what's this crap? This is nonsense. It's true. But you know what? At the same time, I could not deny what they could do in the ring. It was obvious they were very talented as a tag team. Okay? Midnight Rockers became the tag team in the AWA during their era. The second tag team, they're the ones that put them on the map as a team, Playboy Buddy Rose and Pretty Boy Doug Summers, AWA World Tag Team Champions. Okay? Great tandem. Why? Because you look at them, there's nothing pretty or playboy about either one of those guys. But you know what? They were both very good hands. They worked well together. And that was their whole shtick, was that playboy and pretty boy. And you look at them, they're not. That's the point. They were heels. You see what I'm saying? And it worked on every level. They were the perfect team to get Marty and Shawn over. By far. No other team in that company could have done it the way Rose and Summers did. Who was their manager? Sherry Martel. Years before, she was sensational Sherry. I mean, she was Sherry Martel. Great manager. One of the best. She was. It started off as maybe a valet, but became a manager later on. And I mean, she was very good for Rose and Summers. She was very good for every team that they ever put her with. And again, later, WWE, the Midnight Rockers, become the Rockers. They split them up. Shawn Michaels. Who does he get? Sherry. He gets Sherry to get him over. Okay? It's good stuff. But who else are we talking about in the AWA, apart from those two top teams? The fabulous ones. Stan Lane and Steve Keirn. Stan Lane, who later went on to become part of the Midnight Express in the NWA, because the original Midnight Express was Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton. Okay? Condrey leaves, is replaced with Stan Lane, managed by Jim Cornette. Awesome stuff. Again, Midnight Express, one of the top tag teams in the NWA. Here's the funny part. AWA had their own Midnight Express. It was Dennis Condrey and Randy Rhodes. Who were they managed by? You got it. Paul Lee himself. Paul Lee Dangerously. They call themselves the original Midnight Express. End up going to NWA and feuding with Lane and Eaton. Great times. But who else are we talking about? How about Bad Company? Anybody remember those guys? Anybody? It's good stuff, man. Bad Company was a good tag team for their day. Who else are we talking about? Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig. I know you know those names. All right. Big Scott Hall. Big Scott Hall. At the time, Scott actually picked up the nickname of Magnum because there was someone in one of the pro wrestling magazines said that he resembled Magnum TA from the NWA. So they called him Magnum Scott Hall. That generated some heat, if I'm going to be honest. But at the same time, he and Kurt were a very good tag team. Again, two baby faces that maybe didn't have a lot to do with each other, but who fit together. They fit perfectly together. So a lot of times you make the combination of two baby faces who maybe didn't have a lot to do with each other, but you put them together and they fit and they get over to the moon. That's what we're talking about here, folks. And Hall and Hennig did that. They became AWA World Tag Team Champions. I mean, that's good stuff. Again, go back and Google some of their work. One of the best tag teams that company had seen in a long time. Who else are we talking about? Let's go a little bit more old school in the AWA. What about Ray Stevens and Pat Patterson? Classic combo. What about the Crusher and the Bruiser? Old school tag team, right? It's getting old school on you, okay? That's AWA. Were there more tag teams? Absolutely. But for me, those were the highlights of the AWA. Do you see a trend here, folks? We're talking about the old days. We're talking about the days of the territories. That's where we're coming from on this. And why is it that even today, fans like myself, fans all over the world, reflect back on the territory days as being the best time in the company? I mean, think about that. What is it about the territory days that brings everything home, that makes you love being a pro wrestling fan? I can tell you the answer from me. Tag team wrestling during the territory days, especially down south, the storytelling was the primary focus. I mean, it was the primary focus. Let that sink in for a second. Do you want to know why I am? Because in WWE, what's the primary focus? Making money. Here's the funny part. And here's the part that for all of my old school frame of mind, for all of my talk about loving the days of the territories and missing that era, here's a part that may shock you if you don't know this about me. Why does pro wrestling exist? Does pro wrestling exist to entertain you? No. Did pro wrestling exist to make Hulk Hogan a household name? No. Does pro wrestling exist to make John Cena a household name, make everyone hate him because of it? No. Okay? Pro wrestling exists to make money. That's it. If you're a pro wrestling promoter, you should want to make money. That's it. If you don't want to make money, you're in this for all the wrong reasons. That sounds greedy. That sounds lame. That sounds superficial. Okay, fine, what have you. Show me a pro wrestling promoter out there that doesn't want to make some money. He doesn't want to break even. Breaking even would be great for a lot of these guys, especially the small timers. They'd love to break even. What do they want? They'd like to show a profit. And what company doesn't want to show profit? Try not showing a profit for long enough, you'd be out of business, man. Okay? Why does it make it any different for a promotion running down south in Legion Halls that has 20 guys in the locker room at any given time and maybe 20 fans out front? What makes him any different than Vince McMahon? Nothing. Oh, he has more heart than Vince McMahon? He loves the business more than... No, come on. He wants to make money just like Vince does. Be honest. And I'll be honest with you. If you're a guy out there breaking into the business and you're in a company that doesn't want to make money, guess what? You're not going to make any money either. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to make anything either. I mean, think about that. You're one of the guys and you're making your living in the indies and you're driving from one town to the next. You're trying to get booked wherever you can. You show up and you work yourself to death. You put on a 5-star match. At the end of the night, you get $5 gas money. There you go. Thanks for coming. It'd have been more, but we didn't make what I thought we would. Okay? That's life, man. That's life. That's reality. That's reality. Paying your dues coming up the hard way. All right? But, again, the territory days, the best era Okay, but storytelling at its finest, getting it done in the ring. That's the difference, folks, of what you're seeing today. What is the main objective of WWE today? To make money? Of course it is. Obviously it is. We all know this. But at the same time, how are they making their money? Okay, they're making the money by Total Divas, making the money from WWE Network. Are they making their money from producing slick promos and video packages and trying to get you to watch and they're, and 10-minute promos in the ring with 6 different guys with 6 different microphones? Or are they telling a story? There's no mystery why the best parts of Monday Night Raw, the parts that get tweeted constantly and get the most praise, are the ones that feature the best matches. That's no accident, man. That's no mystery, because people want the storytelling. It's always been said, or at least in the past 20 years or so, that WWE fans specifically, that the attention span is not what it used to be. There's too many distractions out there. There's video games, there's DVR, there's movies. All right, there's too much stuff to take your attention away. So as a result, matches have to be very quick. Bam, 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 bam. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes here. I don't know how much of that I actually subscribe to. How much of that do you buy into? Do you see what I'm saying? I think that pro wrestling fans are underestimated for their ability to sit there and watch an entertaining match. Now, I say that, but at the same time, how many times have you watched Raw and seen a match where you're going, wow, this is good stuff, and the fans are chanting boring? By the way, if you chant boring at a pro wrestling event, especially if you're watching a match between 2 guys who are killing themselves to entertain you, and it's a good match, by the way, but you're too stupid to know what good pro wrestling is, do me a favor. Find a bridge. Find a bridge. Get in the middle of it. You know the rest. Okay? Are you entitled to your opinion? Absolutely. You bought a ticket, man. You're in the front row. You paid $80 for that flipping seat, right? You're ticked off that the show sucked. You want to air your grievances. My God, I bought a ticket. I'm going to let you know how I feel. The heck with this. Okay. Air your grievances. You're allowed to. But is the match bad? Or is it just that those 2 guys happen to be the 2 in the ring and the crowd happens to be quiet enough where you can be seen and heard on TV? I mean, which is it? Do you see where I'm going with that, folks? Which is it exactly? Are you really upset, or are you just choosing that time to vent? It's terrible stuff. These guys killed themselves in the ring, okay? Storytelling, that's the goal, is to tell a good story. If you're in the business, number one, if you don't want to make any money, or you don't want to tell a story, one directly affects the other. What are you doing? What's the point? Oh, I'm going to use pro wrestling to do something later. Moron. You're wasting your life. Okay? The majority of guys that get in the business get in it because they love the business, not because they can use it as a springboard for something else, man. Come on. All right? You want to tell a good story. Are you capable of telling a good story? If you are, then you have the opportunity to maybe make some money in one of these promotions and maybe keep working hard to get your way up. Tag team wrestling back in the day, these guys traveled together. They probably still do, I'm sure, but they traveled together. Okay? They worked together. They thought together. You go back and watch, again, Rock and Roll Express. Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express. You can see an entire match. The 4 guys never say one word to each other. Not one time. Why? Because they didn't have to. They were so familiar with each other's work, so familiar with what each team wanted to do in the ring. They were so good, they didn't have to talk to each other. Steamboat versus Flair. Those 2 guys, they didn't have to say a word to each other. They didn't. They worked each other so many times. They're very familiar with what each guy wanted to do in the ring. They didn't have to say a word to each other. That's how good they were. Tag teams were just as good back in the day. Okay? To see Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes next to the Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express, oh my God in heaven, man. Are you kidding me? Epic, primetime stuff. It doesn't get any better than that. Tag team wrestling back in the day was the main event. Again, you didn't come just for Rick and Dusty. You came for the tag teams. That's why you were there. What happened to that? What happened to that? You see what I'm saying? Look how far we've come since those days. I mean, look how far we've come, folks. It's amazing stuff when you really think about it. When you really think about how far we've come. Not just from the days of the territories, but how far WWE has come during that time. I mean, some people would actually argue that WWE has always been that way. Do you know what I mean? The WWE has always been... Okay, maybe that's not fair, because WWE did have a good tag team era back in the 80s. They did. They had their share of good tag teams. I mean, who are we talking about now? You know what I mean? Who are we talking about now? Well, let's look at it. The British Bulldogs. Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith. Were they the most influential tag team of their time? Because there's guys out there right now that are still influenced by the British Bulldogs. That's the truth. Okay? Because they were a very good tag team. They worked together. They worked as one. That's the key here, folks. You can take two guys that have virtually nothing in common, nothing to do with each other, but you put them together. It's not just about matching gear. Don't get me wrong. It's about a matching mindset. You want to tell the best story possible. You want to have the best match of the night. You both have the same goals in mind. That's what, to me, constitutes a great tag team. Is knowing you're the best, believing you're the best, going out there and proving it every night. Just like a single star would. It's the truth. I mean, that's what we're looking at. Is two guys coming together for the greater good. Okay? So, again, the British Bulldogs were the measuring stick in WWE, and they still are today. That team, again, still heavily referenced as one of the best tag teams of all time. Who else could you throw in there? Going old school on you for WWE, what about Jimmy and Johnny Valiant? By the way, Jimmy Valiant, great guy. I keep saying this stuff. Name dropping. It's shameless name dropping, folks. But the Boogeyman, all right? One of the finest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. True story. Great guy to work with. What about Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda? Barry Windham, post-Horseman days from NWA. He and Rotunda made a great tag team. And you know, here's the thing. You take two guys, okay, and putting them together is fine. You can take any two guys, put them together. You can give them matching gear. You can give them a catchy name. It doesn't mean anything the fans don't buy in. The fans have to buy in. They bought into Windham and Rotunda. They did. Who else did they buy into? The Killer Bees. Right? They did. Another great tag team, the Nasty Boys. Nasty Boys are a tough one for me. And why? Because the Nasty Boys for me were, I can't use the word great. Did they get heat? Yes. Were they annoying? Yes. But you know, put them, we just mentioned the Killer Bees. Jim Brunzell, B. Brian Blair. Let's put them side by side with, you know, Sags and Knobs, the Nasty Boys. What's the differences? Well, the Killer Bees were two very good talents in the ring. They were fundamentally sound. Okay? Sags and Knobs, not so much. They were loud, obnoxious, you know, kind of stupid. You know what I mean? This is not to disregard anything they accomplished as a tag team. They were booked in every company that existed. They were. AWA, WCW, right? WWE, ECW, right? They worked everywhere. Okay? It's not to discount anything they accomplished as a tag team. But I'm saying, put them next to a more fundamentally sound tag team. And again, folks, this all goes back to what's your preference? What do you enjoy? I pose the question to you right now. What do you enjoy in your tag team wrestling? Do you like more flashy? You know, do you like power moves on a tag team? Do you like two guys that get in there and just nail it and just get it done? And just knock you out with the way they can work in the ring? I mean, you tell me, what is it that you're looking at? Because I'm, you know, if you're going to go that route, Demolition. Road Warrior ripoffs. For all you lifelong WWE fans who have been fans for 30 plus years or whatever it is, rarely ever watched Jim Crockett Promotions and thought that what I just said was blasphemy, I don't really care. Okay? It's no mystery that when Vince did manage to sign the Road Warriors, that Demolition started sliding down. Okay? Why? Because the Vince had the real deal, man. I don't need the imposters now. Say whatever you want to about them. Okay? But honestly, they started falling after that. Demolition, Axis, Smash. They did. They started falling after that. They did. Okay? But here's the funny part. After you get over the initial, God, this is just a ripoff, they look ridiculous, oh, it's a Road Warrior ripoff, they became a very good tag team. There's the kicker. They got to be very good in the ring. Why? Because both those guys were very good independently of each other. It's the truth. They became very good in the ring together. Good tag team. Great? Not for me. That's just me talking. I like Fuji. I like the manager. He didn't really do much, if I'm being honest. He just kind of stood there and looked around. So in terms of an active manager that got involved, he would throw the cane up there and it's whatever. But for me, the entire package was, they were presentable and they would do. But for me to use the word great, that's a tough one. Who else are we talking about? WWE. Again, let's go old school. Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, the first ever African-American tag team champions. All right? It's good stuff. Rocky, very talented guy. Tony, talented guy. Great body on both those guys, man. What they have in common with each other. I mean, they were brought together, right? The thing is, it doesn't matter what you do or don't have in common together. It's what you do when they get you together. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But what can you do when they get you together? What is it about you as a unit that makes fans say, God, I got to go see those guys in person? That's what we're talking about. Whether it's tag team, 6-man tag team, single star, whoever it is. What do you have that makes fans want to buy a ticket? Do you know what I mean? The Wild Samoans. Old school. Here's one for you. What about Great Valentine and Brutus the Barber Beefcake? They kind of get overlooked sometimes, I would think. They were a good tag team. Very solid tag team. Both guys who had history, okay, independently of each other. Especially Greg, right? Good worker. Very good worker. The Hart Foundation, right? Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, the Hitman the Anvil. Classic WWE tag team. I'm going to tell you this, during their era, for their day, to me, best tag team that company had. Okay, next to the Bulldogs, that's a tough one. Hart Foundation, very entertaining. British Bulldogs are more meat and potatoes kind of tag team. Yeah, Hart Foundation had a little bit more flair. They had Jimmy Hart with the megaphone doing his shtick, you know. A little bit more entertaining for my money, okay? But again, talking about the territory days, storytelling that was going on in the ring. Here's a unit that was more of a unit than it was a tag team because there were 3 of them. And you know who I'm going to say before I say it. The Fabulous Freebirds. Right? Terry Bam Bam Gordy, Michael P.S. Hayes. Right? Buddy Jack Roberts. And later on, Jimmy Jam Garvin. Classic. I can't use that word enough for the Freebirds, man. They were one of the best factions in the history of factions and made for some great tag team wrestling, especially in World Class Championship Wrestling when they took on the Von Erichs. Talk about one of the most intense rivalries in the history of the business professional wrestling, the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds, man. I'd pay money to see that all day and twice on Sunday. That's the truth. It's the truth. Great stuff. I remember as a kid watching that rivalry and just thinking, it doesn't get any bigger than this. To me, that was the Horsemen versus Dusty Rhodes and his boys in the NWA. That's what World Class had to compare. And it was a great comparison because it worked on a lot of levels. It really did. It was an awesome, awesome rivalry. Okay? But again, we're talking about telling the story in the ring. Getting it done in the ring. Promos were a huge part of the business. Please don't misunderstand me here. I'm talking about being fundamentally sound. That's what we're talking about. Tag team wrestling. Down south. I'm going to go back to the NBA for a second. Tag team wrestling. Down south. The storytelling was at its finest. WWE, I'm going to put it this way. When I was a kid, WWE was all about show business. WWE was very colorful. Vince McMahon was the ringleader of the circus. They had animals. They had snakes, bulldogs, birds, dragons, budgies. I got that word budgie from an old Danger Mouse episode. If you don't know who Danger Mouse is, please stop listening. Okay, listen, finish the episode, but then go YouTube it. Great British cartoon. Here's the point. WWE was a circus, man. They were the Ringling Brothers. Vince McMahon was P.T. Barnum. He was, with the big top hats. Crazy. When I was a kid, no one watched WWE that I knew. No one. It was a circus. Red, white, and blue ropes. Very colorful. Bah. I didn't care for any of that stuff. Here's the funny part, is that they kept bringing in guys from the territories to make up the meat and potatoes of their card. Okay? I knew these guys. I knew Roddy Piper. I knew Greg the Hammer Valentine. I knew Don Morocco. I knew these other guys, you know? Vince McMahon gets a hold of them, and suddenly you have to become an entertainer. You're no longer a pro wrestler. Is it the same thing? Yeah, of course it is. Obviously it is. But at the same time, you were considered a pro wrestler. You called yourself a pro wrestler. You didn't call yourself an entertainer until much later on. Until you started working with Vince McMahon, the verbiage changed. So WWE was a circus. I didn't watch. I never watched. I wanted Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. I wanted the Horsemen. I wanted Ivan and Nikita. I wanted the Rock and Roll Express. I wanted steel cage matches. I wanted true steel cage matches, not the big blue cages you could shove an infant through the slot. That's lame. My God, I hated that cage. King Kong Bundy versus Hulk Hogan. Sorry, not my cup of tea. Wasn't into it, didn't care. I wanted Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. That's what I wanted. Now, had I grown up in New York, maybe my tone would be different right now. Maybe I would be completely just on the other side of the fence. I don't know. Maybe so. For any fans out there listening who did grow up with WWE, hey, God bless you, right? More power to you. It wasn't my cup of tea when I was growing up. It just wasn't. To me, that wasn't real pro wrestling. I'd see Dusty and Rick get on TV and talk about the paper champion up north. They weren't talking about Vern Gagne, baby. They're talking about Hulk Hogan. He's a paper champion up north, and he was. He was, for all intents and purposes. But why? Because WWE Championship was given to him, handed to him. You're going to be NWA World Heavyweight Champion, had to be voted on by the board, the NWA board. They had to come to an agreement on who the champion was going to be. That was a big deal. WWE, one guy decided. There's another podcast for you, folks. That one's coming soon. Stay tuned. Spoiler alert, right? But tag team wrestling. Again, let's get back. Tag team wrestling, folks. That's what we're talking about. WWE was a circus. NWA was a real deal. Territories were the real deal. That's exactly what we're talking about now. So who else have we got? And why did it work so well? I've heard the comments made about, oh, there were smoky auditoriums, dimly lit. Go back and watch the old clips of the NWA and don't watch the match. Watch the crowd. Watch the crowd. Listen to the crowd. They were into it. They loved every single second of the program. Why? Because just dynamic, action-packed, intense storytelling. That's what we're talking about here, folks. Amazing stuff. And that's why it works so well, because fans were drawn into it. Fans were drawn into it. You couldn't help but be drawn into it. Telling a story in the ring. That's what it became all about. That's what it was all about during that time. And again, you took guys that were hopefully very capable of standing on their own 2 feet, yet they thrived in a tag team environment. Okay? That's part of the deal. Did you have to be a success with that? Nah. Was Marty Jannetty a success by himself? No, not really. Well, neither was Shawn. But you put them together, magic. Okay? Magic. True statement. Can we just agree on that as a true statement? I think so. So, transition from then to now. Let's just go ahead and skip 30 years. That's a good one, right? Act like it never happened. We're not going to do that. I'm just saying. But what happened? Why did the culture change? Why did the perspective change? Why did it change from then to now? I would submit that from a lot of fans' perspective, it never changed. It's true that it never changed. That fans today want tag team wrestling as much as they did in the 70s and the 80s. But we're just not getting it now. But, this is a good one. This is why we can't skip 30 years, right? All that changed in WWE back around 2000. Why? Because the tag team renaissance happened. You know what I'm talking about, right? Talking about the Dudleys, the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian. Completely changed the game. Tag team wrestling been on life support for a long time. Okay? Why? Because Vince put it there. He did. He didn't think it was that important. He didn't care. But slowly but surely, these 3 teams rose to prominence. They rose to prominence against each other. TLC. Put these 3 teams on the map. Okay? Suddenly, tag team wrestling's back, baby. It's back with a vengeance. Fans can't get enough of it. It's some amazing stuff. It's selling out arenas. People are talking about it. It was all the rage. It was. And I remember I was so happy. I was thrilled because I've always been a tag team guy, right? It was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen was the tag team renaissance, the revival in WWE. It was just epic. And why? Because of the stunts, because of the Daredevil sitting off the ladder. Well, that added to it. But for me, it was the tag team wrestling. Because all three teams wanted to go out there and be the best they could. They wanted to put on the best match of the night. And they did that consistently. Consistently, they did that. They weren't alone, okay, because Tag Team Revival brings along other teams, and other teams may have already been there and got caught up in it. Okay, the New Age Outlaws. How can you talk about tag teams without mentioning the New Age Outlaws? Oh, you didn't know? I'm not going to do the thing. You know the thing. I'm not going to do it. But the New Age Outlaws, they're in the mix there, right? Here's a tag team for you. Paul London, and Brian Kendrick. They were in later years. But to me, and they got compared to the Hardys quite a bit. Why? Because they're young, dynamic, action-packed, flying around the ring, more of a luchador type style where you're leaving your feet quite a bit during the course of a match. Good stuff, right? More extreme, maybe, than some of the teams that came after the Tag Team Revival, right? They were very reminiscent. They were an attempt by WWE, in my opinion, to bring back some of that excitement. And it worked in a lot of respects. In a lot of other ways, maybe it didn't work that well. Why? Because they didn't have a lot of great other tag teams to compete against. It's true. Because Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys, all three teams had each other. They had each other to work with. Three teams who were very different, yet different enough and similar enough, actually, to be paired together and to make it look good and to put butts in the seats. Here's the funny part, okay? Whether it's tag team wrestling, singles competition, divas, yes, even I've said it, I'll say it. I don't care. I don't care what aspect of the business you're talking about, whether it's WWE, Ring of Honor, TNA, I don't care what company. The objective is to put a butt in the seat. If you set up 45 steel chairs, you only filled up 39, you didn't do enough. You didn't do enough. You didn't sell enough tickets. You didn't pound the pavement enough. You didn't hand out enough flyers. You didn't put up enough posters. You didn't do enough radio. You didn't do enough TV spots. If all you got to fill is 45 chairs and you fill up 39, you failed. Now, are you still going to put on a great show? Are you still going to go out there and tell your guys, listen, let's come together and let's make this happen? Of course you are. Of course you are. Because if you're a professional and you care about your craft, you want to put on the best show possible. You want to make sure your match on the card, that your little portion of the show is the best it possibly can be. So there's pride involved. I've been a part of many shows over the years, man, in Legion Halls, armories, fairgrounds, you name it, high school gyms, tag teams you never heard of, that you will never hear of. Okay? Those guys probably even wrestle anymore now, years later. They just never pursued it full time. They didn't try. Some of the best matches I've ever seen. In terms of their ability in the ring, how they look together, how they cooperate together. They were a very believable tag team. The crowd bought into it. That's what we're talking about, folks. Do you buy into what you're seeing? That's the most important part. And if you can buy into what you're seeing, then you've made it. That the guys in front of you have accomplished what they wanted. You've bought in. You wanted to buy a ticket. You want to go buy another ticket, see them next week. That's the great part about this. Putting butts in the seats, filling the arena up, filling the building up. You got 45 chairs? Do you have 4,500 chairs? Do you have 20,000 chairs? Doesn't make a difference. You want to fill the place up. That's the thing. Tag Team Revival, during those years, filled the seats up. Well, they weren't the only ones there. Okay, you still had Austin and Undertaker. And speaking of Undertaker, what about the Brothers of Destruction? Kane and Undertaker. Great tag team. Why? Because they were so extremely dominant. They were. I mean, they were, some people during that time refer to them as the modern day Legion of Doom. Imagine, if you will, Kane and The Undertaker versus the Road Warriors in their prime. Kane, Taker in their prime. Talk about a dream match to end all dream matches. Forget Taker versus Sting. What about the Brothers of Destruction versus the Road Warriors in their prime? Holy crap, dude. Can you imagine? Great stuff. Theatrical presentation from all four guys. bringing fans to the table by what they can do, okay? By the whole novelty of those two teams coming together like that. That'd have been great stuff. There's other tag teams that we've not mentioned. WCW tag teams, Harlem Heat, the Steiner Brothers, Chronic. Tag teams that kept that company afloat, did their part to keep that company afloat for a very long time, folks. But who are we talking about? Let's boil this whole thing down, this entire episode, tag team wrestling. Who was the greatest tag team of all time? Who are they? Who you got? As I've said before, folks, this program, what I want the main event to be, is open for debate. It's not me telling you what the facts are, or telling you what the truth is. It's me telling you what I think, giving you my personal analysis, and you can make your own decision. That's what we're talking about. Who's your favorite of all time? Who do you consider to be the best tag team of all time? Here we go, folks. Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors, by far. Why? Were they the best in the ring? No. No. Could they work like Tully and Arn? No. Not at all. They couldn't. Could they work like Matt and Jeff? No. No, absolutely not. What made them the best tag team in the history of the business? Because they made more money than anyone else. That's it. That's it. Game over. That's it. I could have stopped this thing at 2 minutes in. Jim Ross said it best, that the Road Warriors were the best tag team of all time because they made more money than anyone else. What's your criteria? If your criteria is what team sold the most tickets, put more butts in the seats, that's the Road Warriors, man. By far. Hawk and Animal. Everywhere they went, they were tag team champions. Think about that. Okay? Everywhere they went, they were tag team champions. They were a top draw. What tag team in the history of this industry, arguably before and most likely since, could lay claim to that title of biggest tag team draw, that people would pay to see them? Not pay to see the other guys and end up with them, but to have to see these guys live because it's such an experience. Because the Road Warriors 30-second squash match is better than other guys working 10 minutes on the card because of the sheer entertainment value. The Road Warriors had it all. Now, were they on par with, Tully and Arn in terms of ring work? No. Absolutely not. Were they right there with the Hardys in terms of drama and excitement and high risk and fast pace? No, not at all. But the Road Warriors didn't need to do any of that. I'm not saying they didn't need to work. They had fundamentals. For anyone out there who did think they had fundamentals, I disagree. I've seen plenty of muscle-bound guys come and go before and since them who couldn't do a third of what they could do. They were both very athletic guys, okay, up off their feet very quickly. So they could get it done. I defy anyone to tell me otherwise. I've heard statements being made that they were tough to work with. Well, yeah, I guess it's Hawk and Animal. Of course they were. But I mean, that was part of their gimmick, was that they were going to be, tough to work with, but tough to work with in terms of you couldn't do much with them, I guess is what the comment that's been made in the past by guys that have worked them, right? But they were the fans' tag team. They were the fans' favorite in a lot of ways. Hawk and Animal were it. Okay? That's it for me, honestly. I grew up, with the Road Warriors, seeing them live. And seeing the impact that they had. The Road Warrior pop, folks, again, I'm sending you to Google all day long, okay? You need to check this out, because if you've never heard it, please. And again, the thing for me is the version that you saw on WWE with the red pads, the black rubber spikes and all that, it just cannot compare to the version that was down south. And that's the truth. Did Hawk become more entertaining? Yes. Did they become more colorful? Yes. Did they sell more merch up north? Yes, of course. But it just wasn't quite the same. It just wasn't quite the same tag team. The original incarnation with Paul Ellering, of course, in tow. The Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom. Getting it done and then some. Best tag team of all time. That's it. That's my take. Okay? Because they had the entire package from start to finish. Simply put, call this what you want to call it. Totally fine with me. They sold more tickets than anyone else did. That means something. Okay? Still the top draw after all these years. The Road Warriors. They're it. Okay? that's it, folks. How do you judge? What's your criteria? When you think about best tag team of all time, and you know, I've said this 1,000 times before that the format of this show I enjoy, and this is what I wanted. I wanted to open it up for debate. So what do you got? Am I wrong? Who's your choice? Who's the top tag team of all time in your eyes? Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at TomClarkBR. Drop me an email at TomClarkBR@yahoo.com. Let's talk about it, folks. Let's get the debate going. I'm open for discussion any day of the week and twice on Sundays. That's what I got for you this week, folks. This was episode 5, Tag Team Wrestling. Will we revisit this issue again in the near future? More than likely, yes. There's a lot of things we did not touch on, that an hour is quite simply just not enough time to touch on everything that we could have. But I'm looking forward to the next time around. Hope you are too. Episode 6 will be on the way shortly. Once again, thanks for your support, folks. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Hope you had fun. I know I did. Again, thank you for listening. We will see you next time on Tom Clark's Main Event.